The worst thing that can happen in a horse's training is that it can't guess whether what it has done is good or bad. Have you ever wondered how a horse's mind works? Today, we're going to introduce you to the amazing world of conditioning. We're here with real-life examples from the world of horses. Even if you're not a rider, this video can change your perspective on animals. We have 5 types of conditioning that we are going to talk about with you today. Our goal in this video is to teach riders which category each of their behaviors falls into. And if they want to teach a horse something, which path to take so it becomes more deeply ingrained in their horse's mind. So the horse can learn it more easily and be able to do it in the long run and keep repeating it. This means you can use these methods to teach the horse to repeat those actions and be inclined to repeat them on its own. The bad behaviors that some riders sometimes exhibit around their horses and the efforts they sometimes make to train the horse, they are not aware of which method they are using. This causes you to waste time and put a lot of energy into that behavior and that action. And I hope that by the end of this video, you will have a general overview of this topic and understand how much conditioning is a part of your life. Often you use it many times, but you don't know what it's called. You don't know how you are using it, what the limitations of this method are, and whether there is a better alternative method that would make the horse more willing to learn and continue to cooperate with the rider during the movements. Today we'll talk about all these topics in this video. Stay with us. Well, you may have noticed that when a certain sound is made, your horse or your animal shows a very specific reaction. It's possible that with a whistle, your horse runs towards you, or when you're at home and you're opening a plastic bag of something, your dog or cat quickly runs towards you, thinking it's a food and a treat. We call this response and this reaction type 1 conditioning. That is classical conditioning. Classical conditioning means matching a sound or a specific signal with a natural behavior. Imagine that every time you feed the horse, you repeat a specific sound. After several repetitions, even if there is no food involved, the horse recognizes that sound as food in its mind and has the same reaction it had to the food. We call this type of conditioning classical conditioning. Many riders have used this method unintentionally. Let me give you another example. Many times, when the door of the barn opens and closes, the horse shows a specific reaction because the sound of the barn door has always been associated with food. That's why even when the sound of the empty barn door is heard, meaning it opens and closes, the horse sees it as a sign of food and shows that specific reaction. Now, in later stages, we can also control this reaction and this behavior and transform it into other options. Let me give another example regarding horse riding. Imagine that every time a rider gets on a horse in the arena, before the horse moves, the rider or the trainer makes a sound with a whip. Of course, keep in mind that the whip shouldn't hit the horse's body. It should only be used to create a sound. After several repetitions, even if you don't give the horse any leg or aid, just the sound of the whip will make the horse start to move. This means the horse has paired that sound with forward movement in its mind, and the two have become matched. And this whip now means move forward. Do you see what happened? At first, the sound of the whip was a neutral signal. After several repetitions, and since it was always heard along with movement, this sound took shape in the horse's mind as movement. Even if the rider doesn't use their legs or hands, the horse moves forward upon hearing that sound. Here, the horse has undergone classical conditioning. This means a neutral sound has been paired with a natural reaction. If we want to give more examples about horse riding regarding classical conditioning, you've surely seen a horse that, when the rider sits in the saddle and puts their foot in the stirrup, quickly becomes anxious, starts panting, gets restless, and keeps shifting its weight. Have you ever thought about why this happens and what the reason is? Even without the rider giving an aid or using their leg, the horse has become anxious. The rider, unintentionally and without realizing it, over many training sessions, over days and months, has paired tension, stress, and discomfort with the act of sitting in the saddle. This is what has caused the horse to exhibit this behavior now. This means every time they mounted, they would start difficult exercises, put a lot of pressure on the horse with their leg, didn't pay attention to the horse or warming it up, and didn't even pay attention to releasing the horse to calm down and relax. This means they gave the horse no rest between exercises. Now, all of this has caused sitting in the saddle alone to mean get ready for a lot of pressure, get ready for a difficult exercise. So what has the horse been conditioned to? The rider sitting in the saddle is equivalent to the start of training tensions. The important question is, what's the solution? So what should we do about this situation? How can we get the horse back to its previous rhythm and a more correct one? If the rider is knowledgeable, they can retrain and re-educate their horse using reconditioning methods. We have a few suggested steps that you can use. First, for a few days, just sit on the saddle, be calm, and avoid any harsh or controlling behavior. Try to focus solely on calming the horse. This can be done by petting the horse. It can also be achieved by starting your training session later. After sitting on the saddle, you can even reward your horse. Rewarding can be petting, or it can be a treat like a biscuit or special horse treats. All of these methods can encourage your horse to be calm. This time, increase the training pressure step by step. But this time, you must approach it by building trust. This situation can only be corrected by building trust. I'd like to give more examples about classical conditioning. If you work with animals, you are surely familiar with these methods, and it's a good idea to talk about them a bit more here. This time, I want to give you an example of conditioning in jumping exercises. Negative conditioning with a specific obstacle. The rider notices that when their horse approaches a specific obstacle, perhaps because of its color or type, it slows down, pins its ears, becomes restless, loses its rhythm, and starts to resist, even if the distance and height of the obstacle are very simple and easy. But why? Rest assured that in previous training sessions, while jumping that obstacle, the horse either hit the pole or experienced a very harsh punishment or reprimand from the rider. A reaction like punishment, applying excessive leg pressure, or being very harsh with the reins when the horse refuses to jump that obstacle. Now, even just seeing this obstacle without any other action causes a negative reaction from the horse, which is how classical conditioning has taken shape. That specific obstacle has become associated with reminders of pain, stress, blame, resistance, and the creation of fear in the horse's mind. There are solutions to undo this type of conditioning. First, allow the horse to look at the obstacle and pass by it without any force. Pass by it. We can even pair the obstacle with a treat and short stops, so that positive mental experiences can replace the previous behaviors. Yes, you got that right. That's why training horses takes a very long time. And the reason great riders don't rush when training young horses is this very topic of conditioning. These two examples remind trainers that a horse's negative behaviors are not always due to stubbornness and disobedience. Often these reactions are the result of our own unconscious behaviors. Part 2, operant conditioning, which is result dependent. A specific behavior leads to a reward or a punishment. For example, every time you're putting a bridle on a horse and it lowers its head and cooperates with you, you give it a treat. Or every time it pulls its head towards the water trough and follows your hands, you release the pressure from its body. The horse recognizes this particular behavior as a reward because it causes the animal to actively participate in the learning process. Let me say that again. Or it causes the animal to actively, meaning that it truly wants to participate in the learning and training process. This means that it will cooperate with the rider, want to learn and perform new exercises with genuine enthusiasm. Another example is this. In jumping practice, when a horse approaches an obstacle with a smooth, steady rhythm and performs a good jump, the rider loosens the reins after the exercise and gives positive feedback with a calm voice, like, "Good boy." Or sometimes, after landing a correct and clean jump, the horse's reins might be gently loosened. It might rest for a moment, be softly petted, be encouraged with a treat, or be allowed to rest and walk calmly around the arena. It immediately receives a reward, which can be in the form of a release, a rest, giving a rewarding treat, or even encouraging the horse with a special sound. This is exactly operant conditioning. A good behavior that has had a positive outcome and ultimately causes the probability of that behavior being repeated to increase. This means the horse displays a certain behavior, observes its result, and that causes it to learn the action and try to repeat it in the future. Point. You can think of this example as how one can use conditioning, to use our hand and leg aids to train the horse, or if you've run into a problem at some stage of your horse's training, which method you should use right now. Listen to this part one more time. I've learned that many riders, when they perform a correct jump, move on to the next obstacle and even make jumping an obstacle harder. But if you learn to give the horse a small reward at the right moment, like releasing the reins, a short pause, or even a sound, the horse's brain reinforces the correct behavior faster. And I also learned that trainers who only react to wrong behaviors miss the golden opportunity to reinforce the correct behaviors. Operant conditioning means seeing every correct moment and rewarding it right there. Okay, the third part is cued conditioning. Here, a specific cue, like a sound or a horse's movement, tells the horse it's time to perform a specific behavior. For example, a rider who whistles a specific tune before each jump. After a few repetitions, the horse learns that this exact sound is the time to start the jump. This method is very useful for advanced jumping, dressage, and even groundwork, because it increases the horse's focus in that moment. Cued conditioning, in simple terms, means learning to respond correctly to a specific cue, like a sound, touch, or movement. Now I'll explain with more examples. Imagine a rider is training a young horse that is supposed to enter competitions. During training, every time it gets close to the obstacle, exactly 2 strides before the obstacle, a specific sound is made as a cue, like whistling. Remember, you can use any consistent sound, but you must always perform it consistently and precisely. For example, you can't use one whistling sound one time, and the next time use a different kind of whistle with a different tone. The goal is to increase the horse's focus on the obstacle, which is accompanied by the activation of the horse's mind and body. After a few repetitions, the horse learns that the specific sound means it's almost time to jump, get ready. This sound alone has become a cue that takes the horse's mind from a simple movement to a state of focus for the jump. If these cues are accompanied by reward and success, they become part of the horse's mental system. An important point. This technique can be very useful for horses that don't have enough focus in the approach to an obstacle. With a special sound, you can awaken the horse's mind right at the desired moment. The second example is about a common practice among trainers. In a groundwork exercise, the trainer intends to use a special sound or a cue to quickly invite the horse to relax and stay calm. Something that will quickly make anxiety and fear go away. The training process is like this. When the horse calms down, the trainer loosens the rein, pets the horse, and makes a special sound. This repetition conditions the sound with the feeling of calmness and stopping. After a while, just by making that sound, the horse quickly calms down. Now, this auditory cue has become a powerful tool for controlling the horse's mental state. Even in calm environments, it not only changes performance, but it also makes the horse's mental stress level controllable with a command or a cue. This style of conditioning is crucial for horses that are prone to overreacting or get anxious very quickly, and it can be very useful. You've probably also wondered what the difference is between type 2 and type 3 conditioning. I know you might be a little confused, but now we'll talk about it a bit more to clear things up. In operant conditioning, meaning type 2 conditioning, the horse itself performs a behavior, and we, by rewarding or punishing, cause that behavior to be reinforced or weakened. But in type 3 conditioning, which we call conditioning with a cue, we first present a signal, like a sound, a touch, or even a movement, and then we expect the horse to show a specific behavior in response to it. Let's make the difference a step deeper and more visual. In operant conditioning, the behavior starts with the horse first. We then let the horse know if the action is good or bad with a reward or punishment. The goal is to shape and repeat the behavior based on the consequence. For example, the horse lowers its head on its own. We make that click, and then we give it a reward. Now the horse learns that this action is good, and in the final stage, the horse repeats that behavior. But in conditioning with a cue, which is type 3 conditioning, the behavior starts from us, like a sound or a touch. Then the horse learns to show a specific behavior with that particular cue. The goal is to build a specific connection between the cue and the response. For example, we whistle and the horse suddenly stops because it has learned that this whistle means to stop. So to summarize, in operant conditioning, we respond to the horse's spontaneous behavior. But in classical conditioning, the horse responds to our cue. In the first, the reward shapes the behavior, but in the second, it's the cue that activates a behavior. The fourth type is called conditioning with delayed reward. In this type of conditioning, the horse is not immediately rewarded for the correct behavior. But the reward, although with a short delay, is definitely given, but it takes time for the horse to learn that the correct behavior is worth it, even if it doesn't yield immediate results. This style is very effective for increasing focus, reducing excitement, and improving the horse's mental discipline. Suppose a trainer wants the horse to learn to wait a few seconds after 3 consecutive jumps to receive a reward. Here, a specific sound is made, but the reward is given a few seconds later. The horse learns that success isn't immediately followed by a reward, and that it needs to be more patient and focused to get a good result. This method is excellent for developing intelligent and high-performing horses. Very smart horses should be trained using this style of conditioning. For example, we have a young horse that's used to getting excited, speeding up, or losing focus immediately after a successful jump. The trainer's goal here is to teach the horse that a good jump isn't enough. It will only get a reward if it maintains its rhythm and focus after landing, which is why many great riders suggest that after a jump, you try to make a 20-meter circle and maintain your canter rhythm. Now you can understand the reason for these exercises and the philosophy behind them. Usually, after the 3rd and 4th jump, if the horse continues calmly, the trainer stops the exercise, loosens the reins, or allows it to walk in the arena. But if the horse gets excited after the jump, the trainer continues the exercise, might repeat the jump, or makes the horse continue without the reward of release. The horse learns that if I jump correctly and stay calm, I'll get a reward like stopping the exercise or being set free. This conditioning causes the horse to seek a mental reward after the jump instead of getting more excited. Over time, its focus increases from a jumping, which is just a physical leap, to reach a mental maturity. The point is that this style of conditioning is very useful in training horses that are prone to proactive behaviors after success. In the horse's mind, being correct is no longer limited to just the moment of the jump, but it relates to the entire behavioral process both before and after that moment. Also, imagine you have a horse that gets quick and impatient when it reaches the stable door or the arena gate. It pushes, gets ahead of the rider, or shows other bad behaviors. because it thinks that as soon as it reaches the gate, it will be free. But a smart trainer won't let this incorrect conditioned mindset take shape. The conditioning solution involves a delay in the reward. What does that mean? It means when the horse gets to the stable door, the trainer doesn't open it. He waits for the horse to calm down, lower its head a bit, and for its body to become more relaxed. At the very least, its heavy breathing should subside a little. And after that behavior, he opens the door with a few seconds delay. What do you think the horse learned? The horse learned that the door doesn't open just because it has arrived. It opens when I am calm. Note that if you open the door at the same time as a wrong behavior, for example, pulling, pushing, or restlessness, the horse learns that bad behavior equals reaching its goal. And this is very dangerous, because it leads to insolence, disrespect, or even much more dangerous behaviors. But by delaying the reward after the horse's correct behavior, the horse's mind connects precisely to that correct moment. This style of conditioning helps us correct behaviors like rushing towards the fence, pushing when entering and exiting the stable or arena gate, or even pushing and getting ahead of the handler while leading the horse and making noise and pawing in the stall when horses are waiting for feed or another horse. Without punishment, just by managing the timing of the reward, all of this is possible. Part 5. Unpredictable conditioning. This is very dangerous. In this type of conditioning, there is no specific pattern of reward or punishment. The horse's behavior is sometimes rewarded, sometimes not. Sometimes it's punished, sometimes it's ignored, without any logic. The result is the horse becomes confused, nervous, and even unmotivated. Learning stops, because it doesn't understand which behavior is correct, and which behavior is the one that leads to a reward. Let me put it better. When the trainer's behavior, or the rewarding, is without a pattern and is inconsistent. One time, a lot of food, another time, nothing. One time, punishment, another time, silence. The horse's mind becomes completely confused. The horse doesn't know what to do. This leads to mistrust, anxiety, disobedience, or even psychological damage. Unfortunately, many trainers use this method without even realizing it, and it causes confusion for the animal. Behaviors where the horse doesn't understand what is correct. Imagine a rider where, when the horse does everything correctly before a jump, one day they encourage it, another day they hold it back, one day they yell, and on another day they show no reaction and it just goes over the jump. Each time, the horse is faced with a different behavior from the rider. Meaning, without any pattern, the result is that after a few sessions, the horse starts to hesitate, doubt, and even refuse to jump. In the horse's mind, it's thinking, I don't know what the right thing to do is. Whatever I do, I might be punished or ignored. To give a more professional example of a rider's behavior, consider a trainer during groundwork. Sometimes, for the smallest correct response, they release the pressure, encourage the horse, and let it rest. But other times, they ignore those same responses. And sometimes, for that very same response, they apply even more pressure on the horse. Ultimately, the horse doesn't know when exactly it will be released, what the right thing to do is, whether the pressure is going to stop, or if it's going to increase. The result is anxiety, mental escape, or even defensive and aggressive behaviors. The signs that tell you a horse is caught in irregular conditioning, meaning type 5 conditioning, one of them is that the horse is always expecting punishment. Even when it's about to be praised, it's anxious and nervous. It refuses to do even the simplest exercises. It doesn't want to participate with the rider in the exercises and doesn't even want to perform the simplest tasks. It has a hard time trusting and is quick to show a negative reaction. A very important issue that occurs with this type of conditioning is that horses develop learned helplessness. This happens when the animal learns that no reaction to doesn't show any reaction, because it feels like there's nothing it can do. If I were to give you today's golden tip as a gift, The worst thing that can happen in a horse's training is that it can't guess whether what it has done is good or bad. Because at that point, not only does it stop learning, but its relationship with the rider and trainer is ruined from the ground up. For this reason, you must be very, very careful about how you react to the horse's behaviors. When you want to train an animal, especially a horse, you need to know which method you are using for which issue. You learn to play with the animal's mind. So if you are a good trainer, you must know how and when to use each of these methods. Now that you are familiar with the 5 styles of conditioning, you tell me which one have you used so far? Or have you unintentionally used the 5th type in your training with the horse? If this video was useful for you, be sure to like it and send it to other riders you know who might need it. Here we talk about the experiences of different trainers. Words that need to be heard more. Be successful.